A duel via hot air balloon? The internet says it's true. Welcome to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds like I made it up, part of the WCBE podcast experience. My name is Michael Kent. This is episode 144, and it's a rewind episode, meaning that if you are a regular listener, you would have heard this one before. Today, when this episode is coming out, June 5th, I'm currently in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, sailing from Portugal to Halifax, Nova Scotia, so that's the reason for the rewind episode. As always, I want to remind you that all of the episodes are available ad-free on Patreon. You can also go there if you want to watch the video of me interviewing our guests each week. It's the only place where you can access Joke, Story, Trick, which was the live web show I did during the pandemic. There are 65 episodes of that, and they're only available when you become a Tizitor. In other words, sign up for $1 a month or more, and you can find all of that. It's patreon.com/Michael Kent. And as of last week, you can now sign up for a free trial. So if you're on the fence about joining, you can sign up for free and try it out for a week. Once again, that's patreon.com/Michael Kent. There's also a link in the show notes. If you're listening from the Chicago, Illinois area, I'll be in Chicago for 6 shows at the Chicago Magic Lounge. That's from the 15th to the 18th of June. Those tickets are available at chicagomagiclounge.com. And then I'll be back in Columbus for 4 shows at the P3 Magic Theater. That's June 23rd and 24th. Those tickets are available at p3magictheater.com. So, if you want to see me perform my comedy and magic show, you can go get those tickets and see me live. If you do decide to see me on the road, by the way, make sure you stop by. Say hello, let me know you're a listener. Now today, when this episode is being released, it's June 5th, and it's National Hot Air Balloon Day, apparently. Did you know that? Well, it is. So, to celebrate Hot Air Balloon Day, we're rewinding back to episode 70 from January of 2022, when we first talked about one of the strangest things to ever happen in a hot air balloon. This is right up my alley. I love weird stories from history, and this is certainly very strange. I enjoyed learning about this one. There aren't a whole lot of intricate details to this story, but it was documented in the papers, and it definitely happened. So let's get started. This is a story about Monsieur LePique and Monsieur Grandpré. And no, it's not about a fight between 2 hockey players. It's a story from early 19th century in Paris, or rather, over Paris. It was 1808. Napoleon Bonaparte was emperor. Back in the United States, the idea of burning coal for heating a home had just been invented. Spain's King Ferdinand had just lost his throne to France, ending the Spanish-Anglo War. The French Empire had been through several decades of turmoil after the 1789 Revolution. Following a period of extreme violence carried out on anyone who didn't support the revolution, Napoleon had been named emperor and had just erected the Arc de Triomphe. Paris was about to see rapid industrialization and progress. The arts flourished, and that's where we meet our fair princess. She wasn't really a princess, but could have likely played one on stage. Mademoiselle Thierry was a famed ballet dancer at the Paris Opera. It was said that many of the bachelors of Paris had been led into heartache after watching her delicate and sensual steps. In 1808, she was being kept by Monsieur de Grandpré. Being kept is sort of an antiquated phrase to describe a relationship, and it usually has sort of an illicit undertone. I guess in modern terms, Monsieur Grandpré was her sugar daddy. They had entered into an ongoing relationship that could probably be better described as an arrangement. But then enters Monsieur LePique. It turns out that LePique had been seeing Mademoiselle Thierry as well, and both men were now laying claim to her heart and her bed. Upon discovering this, you might think that both men would shame the woman and want nothing more to do with her. But no, those sensual, seductive ballet steps were so enamoring that they decided they would fight for her. And this was 1808 Paris, so that meant their fight would be a duel. Duels were an incredibly common way to settle disputes among gentlemen. According to an Ariel Roth editorial, The Dishonor of Dueling, during the reign of Henry IV, more than 4,000 French men died from dueling. It was common for the topic of morning conversation to be, "Do you know who fought yesterday?" But this wouldn't be any old normal duel. For Grandpré and LePique, They came up with a duel that was as special and artistic as the woman they wanted. They duel in matching hot air balloons. I'll tell you how that all went down after a quick message. When the pandemic hit, I decided to create a weekly talk show online called Joke, Story, Trick Live. It started small but ended up huge with 45 live episodes, celebrity guests like U.S. Congressman Mark Pocan, comedy writer Bruce Vilanch, and actor Larry Hankin. I've put them all on my Patreon for you to watch whenever you'd like, and the best part is they're available at all levels of membership. That means whether you're paying $10 a month or $1 a month, they're all there for you to watch. Not only that, but by joining, you can watch each week's guest interview of this podcast. I take the video from the raw Zoom call with no edits, and I just put it up there every week. You can join now starting at $1 a month at patreon.com/Michael Kent. Just type in patreon.com/Michael Kent, my name. I can't wait to see you there.
We're living through the most dynamic time in human history, and what we do as leaders matter. We are the ones that create the leverage to shift directions of our companies, our nonprofits, and our communities. As a leader or an emerging leader, please join me for a dynamic conversation with top thought leaders, academics, and executives to learn more about how to elevate your leadership. I'm Maureen Metcalf. Join us at the WCBE podcast experience at wcbe.org.
Hi, this is Sue Foley, and inviting you to listen to Music Journeys. Hear local and national artists share how the love of music began and what inspired their latest project. Mike Foley blends it all together with some music. Now, you can't believe him if he says he's related to me and inherited my musical talent, but you can be sure that other Foley will deliver a worthwhile listening experience too. Listen to Music Journeys Saturday mornings at 11:30 on WCBE and in the podcast experience at wcbe.org.
The Internet Says It's True is happy to be sponsored by The Power of the Streak. This is an easy-to-read book by author Kara Wood with the best idea yet for consistent exercise and staying motivated over time. That part I read. This part, I'm telling you from the heart, I struggle with working out regularly. I'll go back, I'll start exercising, and then I'll stop after a couple of weeks, or I'll go a week and a half, and then I'll stop. And I learned that I'm not the only one who this happens to. So Kara has a similar story. Kara was, basically without motivation for years. And she was able to find that formula that got her to flip the switch, and she hasn't looked back. She actually has been able to stick with it through the methods that she teaches in her book. So she tells her story of starting and keeping a running streak for 12 busy years while having a demanding career, 2 kids. I mean, she has the secret to exercise no matter what. Her story is funny, it's relatable and inspiring, and she explains to you how you can do the same thing with any exercise. And it doesn't have to be running, which is hard on your knees and hurts your feet. And this isn't just the internet saying it's true. Even a cynic will leave feeling motivated, inspired, and excited to commit once and for all to long-lasting exercise and fitness. The book is called The Power of the Streak by Kara Wood, and it's available in all formats where books are sold. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can also get the audiobook on iTunes and Audible. So make sure, you learn all about this. Go pick up the book. You can also follow The Power of the Streak on Instagram. It's just at The Power of the Streak, and Twitter, Power of Streak. I think that you will enjoy it. There was a time that humans used 100% organic products as healing balms and moisturizers for their skin. Well, I've partnered with an awesome company that wants to get back to those times. Fatco sells organic and responsibly made tallow-based skincare products. For centuries, humans used tallow in skin moisturizers and healing balms, but unfortunately, the topical application of these fats seemed to stop around the same time that animal fats stopped being considered part of a healthy diet. A lot of modern skincare products do more harm than good by stripping your skin of its natural oils. Let's change that. You can try them out now at fatco.com and get 15% off your order by using my promo code INTERNET. Go to theinternetsaysitstrue.com/deals for the link. Duels were common in 19th century France. Duels from hot air balloons were not. But that's what these men decided to do in one of the most French decisions in history. Hot air balloons were a fairly new invention. They had first appeared around 1783, so they were still very novel. Now, if you're familiar with Hamilton the musical, you've no doubt learned that each man is to appoint a second. That's a man who is a close confidant who arranges the terms of the duel. In this case, the seconds of Monsieurs Grandpré and LePique arranged to have two identical hot air balloons constructed. They would lift at the exact same time and at the same speed. Once a signal was given, the men would face each other and fire. Here's where this duel differed from the traditional duel. Other than the hot air balloons, the men wouldn't fire at each other. They'd fire at the gigantic target that was the other man's balloon. It was quite common in a traditional duel for the men to miss their target. In this case, it would be much harder to miss. But a traditional dueling pistol would have little to no effect on a giant balloon. So instead, each man would take with them a blunderbuss. This was a short-barreled rifle that was flared at the end. They would either shoot large caliber or shot like a shotgun, which was probably the case here. To raise the stakes even further, each man's second would accompany him in the air. And for the winner, Mademoiselle Thierry agreed to, quote, bestow her smile upon the survivor of the two if the other was killed, or at all events. It was thought that there was even a chance that the loser of the duel would survive as the winds may gently carry a deflating balloon to the ground. It wouldn't turn out that way. 1 month after the arrangement, on June 22nd, 1808, a crowd gathered at the Gardens of Tuileries to witness the duel. The ropes holding back the balloons were cut, and they lifted into the air. There was very little wind, so the balloons stayed inside of the onlookers, raising into the air around 80 yards apart from each other. When they reached a height of about half a mile above the earth, the signal was given. Monsieur LePique fired first. He aimed his blunderbuss at Grandpré's balloon and missed entirely. LePique and his second watched in horror as Grandpré pointed his gun back at the massive balloon above. Monsieur Grandpré didn't miss his shot. LePique's balloon was punctured and deflated almost instantly, sending the two men falling violently toward the Paris neighborhoods below. The description in the papers said LePique and his second were dashed to pieces on a housetop. Unfortunately, history never recorded what happened to the relationship of Monsieur Grandpré and Mademoiselle Thierry. But as for LePique, it's certain that no one in history has ever fallen harder for a woman. Now it's time for the part of the podcast where I call a friend, and today I'm calling Eric Dittelman. Eric is a regular on the show. He's always a good time. He's also a nationally touring mind reader and all-around good dude. So good to have you back on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a while. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, I think you're in like the 5 Timers Club now.
Oh, do I get a jacket?
I think so, yeah. At least. I love having you on the show. And it's been a while since I talked to you. You're the first guest of the year. Now, for this topic, it's a little weird and fun and lighthearted, but also tragic. But I don't want to tell you too much about it. We're going to play for a joke. If you get it right, I have to tell a joke. If you get it wrong, you'll tell me one.
Okay.
Here's your question. In 1808, 2 men in Paris fought a duel over the love of a ballerina. What was so unusual about the duel? Was it A, they both shot each other and died? B, they fought the duel while swimming in the ocean? Or C, they fought the duel from hot air balloons?
Okay, I know which one I want it to be. But I have not heard this, so this is a complete guess. I feel like if it was just they killed each other, I feel like that happens quite a bit, maybe in duels, so I don't think you would be doing an episode on it. So I'm going to say, just for pure visual alone, I hope it's hot air balloons. See?
You are correct. They fought the duel from hot air balloons. They did. Yeah, that's the most French thing ever, right?
I mean, isn't that an easy duel to win? You just shoot the balloon.
That's exactly what, and they didn't even pretend that they were going to shoot each other. That was the idea. And so instead of like flintlock pistols, they shot blunderbuss shotguns at the balloons. And here's the crazy part. They brought their seconds in the balloon with them. So they're up there with their best friend. Talk about
Wow.
raising the stakes. Holy cow.
It was the ballerina just watching from the ground?
She was. The newspaper said, quote, she said she promised to bestow her kisses. No, her smile, not even her kisses. She said she'd bestow her smile upon the victor.
I mean, doesn't the ballerina have a friend? This could have been all resolved.
It could have been. Yeah, I'm sure there are other ballerinas. It was 1808. Apparently, the men of Paris were quite taken with this one particular ballerina, Mademoiselle Tiravie. Now, the first guy missed the balloon entirely. They were 80 yards apart. And can you imagine being the second and watching your buddy miss the other balloon, just knowing that the other guy is going to start shooting at you now? And of course, the second guy did not miss. And rather than a tiny hole that let the balloon quietly flutter to the ground, it basically deflated instantly and dropped like a rock. And the two men were killed.
How high up were they?
They were half a mile.
Jeez. I mean, when they set the time, it kind of puts a whole new meaning if it was high noon.
Yeah. You get an extra point for that joke. Oh no. My gosh.
And I'm glad I just made a joke right after you said they died. Just real tragic.
Yeah, and that brings me to my joke. That's a perfect segue to my joke. What's funny about 5 people in a Chevy Suburban driving off a cliff?
Now what?
Nothing. They were my friends.
Oh, you're really mixing this comedy and tragic theme throughout this.
That's what this episode is. That's what this episode is all about. So there you go, listeners. Comedy and tragedy all in one. My career in a sentence. Question number 2. For this question, we're playing for a story about something embarrassing that's happened to us while performing. If you get it right, I'll tell you one of mine. If you get it wrong, you'll tell me one of yours. Here's your question. In what year was the last recorded duel fought?
Oh,
was
I'm so bad at years.
This goes back to the classic Dittelman estimating. A, 1902, B, 1967, or C, 1995?
I want to say it's later than you'd think. 95 seems, I don't know, like that doesn't seem like that would still be allowed. I'll go B. I'm gonna go B for some reason.
1967?
Yeah.
You are correct, Eric Dittelman. You're 2 for 2. The last recorded. So they fought with épées. This was also in France. It was between Marseille mayor Gaston Defferre and another politician named René Ribière. Neither man died. Both lived long lives. Defferre had vowed not to kill Ribière, but, quote, wound him in such a way as to spoil his wedding night very considerably, end quote.
Whoa.
But yeah, they fought with fencing épées, apparently.
Now imagine if they were also in hot air balloons, just kind of swatting at each other in the air. That's what I want to see.
Closer. Get me closer. Get me closer. I can't reach.
I'll slash it. Slash the balloon.
It would have the same effect, but you'd have to get pretty close. That would be and you'd probably have to climb up out of the, I don't know, that'd be a good, maybe this could be a, the next Robot Wars is just hot air balloons with knives, and Drone Wars, we'll call it. Man, this is something. You got it right, which means I have to tell you an embarrassing story. This is one that you know, but our listeners do not. There is a routine that I used to perform in my show that many magicians perform, in which a wooden table starts to float. He's laughing. He already knows what I'm talking about. A wooden table starts to float up off the ground, and it floats with seemingly no support from anything. And as I'm floating this table in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, at the university there, it all sort of just broke. First, the table legs fell off the table, and then before I could catch anything, the table kind of broke in half, and then the top broke off the table, and then I went to grab the box on the table, and the lid came off the box, and it broke into like 4 or 5 pieces, and there is video of this. Here's what I'm going to do for you. We haven't gotten many new Patreons this week, so here's what I'm going to do. If you're listening, I'm going to put that video on Patreon Monday only. So if you're listening to this on Monday, January 3rd, you can watch that video. I'm taking it down on the 4th. So
I will attest, it is worth seeing this video. It is hilarious.
It's an insane video. I've never sent it to anyone. I've shown it to some friends on Zoom from my phone because I'm afraid someone's going to screenshot it or something. But I will put it up for one day. So if you join Patreon, I don't even care if you unjoin on Tuesday. But yeah, Monday I'll put it up and I'll take it down on Tuesday. It's an insane video.
That is a deal. Please do this.
It's worth the $1.
Yeah, it's worth the $1.
Yeah. All right. Question number 3. For this question, we're playing for a coveted Internet Says It's True sticker. These are very hard to come by and extremely valuable, especially since I'm down to my last few. I don't have too many left.
Oh.
So just down to a few of these. The most famous duel of all time is probably the one that occurred between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. The duel that killed Hamilton and vilified Burr for the rest of his life. In which one of these locations was the famous duel fought?
Okay.
A, Weehawken, New Jersey. B, the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Or C, Battery Park.
Okay, if I can remember my Hamilton viewing, I want to say it was in New Jersey, so I'm going to go A.
A, Weehawken, New Jersey?
Yeah.
You are correct. It is in Weehawken, New Jersey. You can visit the site today. There is the stone where Hamilton lay his head after he was shot. He didn't die there. He died just a little bit later. But yeah, you can still visit the Weehawken dueling grounds in New Jersey today. So you'll get another sticker. I'm sure you have plenty that I have probably never mailed you.
I'm more of a pin guy, so if you could make some pins next time.
I was thinking about some enamel pins. Yeah. I was also considering mugs, but this is all up in the air. I don't know how many people are going to want mugs, so I'm not going to have a basement full of mugs. I still have a basement full of self-help books I wrote. That's another thing nobody knows about. I was 21 years old, and I was part of a group book, and it's called How to Achieve Unlimited Success. And apparently I had deemed that at the age of 21, I had done that and felt the ability to tell other people how to.
Wait, we have a second bonus embarrassing story from Michael Kent.
I guess we do. This is the second. And if you want the book, they are $10. And I've got a box full of them because I was always a little bit too embarrassed to sell them. So I've got more than a box full of them. I've got a basement full of these books.
It's amazing.
I think. I don't know. Allison is always bugging me to get rid of them. So every time we have a bonfire, I grab a couple and use it as kindling. Oh my gosh. All right. Question for Eric. For this question, we're playing for an audio Easter egg. So if you get it wrong, you have to say a phrase of my choosing on an upcoming episode of your podcast, which is the Mind Over Magic podcast. If you get it right, I'll say that same phrase on the next episode of this podcast. Here's the phrase. The phrase is, Jar Jar was framed.
Okay, it's funny because if I do say that, the podcast I do is with Matt Franco, Vegas headliner. He is not going to know who Jar Jar is at all.
Even better. Even better. Has Matt not seen Star Wars? The new ones, or just never?
Just saw Star Wars, the original, and that's it.
Just the first one, A New Hope, or
no, like the original trilogy. We talked about it on our podcast, and he had to kind of force his way through, I believe.
It doesn't hold up?
I watch it all the time. I think it holds up.
But we have nostalgia. If you saw it as a kid, it's a different experience.
You'll have to ask Matt.
I'm really curious about this. I feel like it has such wide appeal that it should hold up for someone who has never seen it. I've heard people watching Harry Potter movies currently and not enjoying them, having never seen them before.
Interesting.
So I think, nostalgia obviously plays a huge part in what we like as adults.
Harry Potter might because of the author, though. So
maybe there's a little bit of a jaded feeling about the author. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So here's your question. This is question 4. President Andrew Jackson killed a man named Charles Dickinson in a duel in 1806. Which one of these statements is also true? A, Jackson demanded only to duel at midnight using the light of the moon. B, Jackson fought in over 100 duels in his lifetime. Or C, Jackson challenged a Cherokee chief to a duel, which he won, and that led to the Trail of Tears.
Yikes. Okay. Some heavy topics here.
Yeah.
Charles Dickinson. The author of A Christmas Carolson?
Different guy.
Okay.
Yes, no, A Christmas Carolson. Oliver Twiston.
I want to say maybe just the Moonlight one. Was that A?
A was midnight, only midnight duels.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Eric. The correct answer is B. Jackson fought over 100 duels over the course of his life.
All right, what's the phrase again? I need to write it down.
Jar Jar was framed.
Jar Jar was framed. Okay.
Yes.
I'll have to figure out how to work that in.
And, marketing-wise, it's kind of a smart move to miss this question because then people are going to go over and listen to your podcast to make sure you say it.
Yeah, let's go with that's why I missed it.
Yeah, it was a purposeful thing. Jar Jar was framed. So go over to Mind Over Magic, the podcast, with Eric Dittelman and Matt Franco, and listen to the next episode that they record, which comes out when? Do you guys have a regular production schedule?
Yeah, every Friday. So we're going to be live again this week, and took a week off for the holiday. And my plan, I think, is just to throw it in with no context.
That's the best way to do it.
I think I'm just going to say it as an exclamatory statement.
I think that's a really great way. If you do your trivia question and you miss the trivia, if Matt misses the trivia, you just yell, Jar Jar was framed, and nobody knows exactly why you yelled it. And I kind of want Matt to not let it go. I really want him to ask what that means. And then it's up to you.
I won't even mention it's from this podcast. No, I'll give you a plug.
You don't have to. You can make up a total nonsense story about where that came from. So yeah, this guy Dickinson, not Charles Dickens, Charles Dickinson. This is from history.com. The man Jackson killed, he was a horse breeder from Tennessee. They became embroiled in a four-way disagreement, and Jackson's friend and Dickinson's father-in-law were in the disagreement as well. And it was over a gambling debt. And this led to Dickinson calling Jackson a, quote, coward and an equivocator, and publishing a statement in the local newspaper that labeled Jackson a scoundrel and a poltroon. Poltroon, poltroon. That's not an insult, you see.
If he was an equivocator, he could have been like, all right, you could either use this gun or that gun. You could either fire or not fire, and he's trying to control his decisions.
That gun? Great. We'll put that gun over here, and we'll use this gun.
You're left with that empty gun.
Yeah. This is cool, too. Dickinson, so it's possible that during that time, Dickinson made the mistake of taking aim at Jackson's wife, Rachel, whom he called a bigamist for having mistakenly married Jackson before her divorce from her first husband had been finalized. So there was a whole other angle, and that makes one a poltroon, apparently. So now you are 3 for 4, and we're heading into question 5. Eric, this question is for all the marbles.
Okay.
If you get this wrong, never again will I ask you on the show. You've traveled all over with your career. Tell us about the most beautiful place you've ever visited.
I'm going to intentionally get this one wrong, just so... No, I'm just kidding.
I've never had anyone do that.
It's right here, right now. No, that's a lie. I don't know. This is that's tough for me to answer. Let me think. I would have to say, like, just because it was out of the country and I got to actually travel a little internationally on a cruise ship, one of the stops where I ported from was Malaga, Spain, which had I got to explore a little bit. It's the birthplace of Picasso, so I went to his museum that's dedicated to him there, and then just got to explore these amazing like ruins in that were like a Moorish castle that's just like was this fortress that's up on a hill, and you just got this amazing view of the city. It's right up in the Mediterranean. So yeah, Malaga.
That's
Spain.
Awesome. Well, we'll call that a right answer. You went 4 for 5 today, and that's beautiful. I was in Spain once, just for I think I was there for 3 or 4 days as part of a tour, and it was beautiful. I was in just outside of Cadiz, Spain, so very very close to Morocco. So that's all we've got. I'll be happy to have you on the podcast again, Eric, and I hope you have a great New Year. Did you do anything fun for New Year's Eve?
No, just a small little, like, just a friend and I got together and hung out because, we're doing our part.
That's great, yeah, and you're in a much more populated area, so it's a little bit scarier there. I had to do 3 shows. I did 3 shows in Bradford, PA. It was a lot of fun. Had a good time.
Nice.
But I'm still very tired from it. So I hope you have a good 2022. I hope that these shows start coming back to us and we can get back on the road a little bit more. You can follow Eric Dittelman on all of his socials. It's Eric Dittelman, Dittelman. And you can get those socials if you don't want to type that in. Go to his website, type that in, you can get them all there. It's ericdittelman.com, Dittelman. And go subscribe to his podcast and Matt Franco's podcast by searching for Mind Over Magic. Thanks again, Eric, and have a great new year, man.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year to you.
Well, that's all for this week. Thank you so much to Eric Dittelman for being my guest. Here's a young kid who is terrified of hot air balloons, and not because of the guns.
Thank you for listening to The Internet Says It's True. To listen to episodes ad-free and a week early, support us on Patreon. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. If you learned something just now that you didn't already know, go to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review with 5 stars and a few words. That helps us a ton, because that's how the algorithm works. I don't know what an algorithm is, but just do it. See you next week for a brand new episode of The Internet Says It's True!
The Internet Says It's True would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions help to make this show possible. Sean Brown, Denny Corby, Joshua Endress, Dallas Ray, Bryce Swanson, Eugene Anderson, Jim and Joanne Martin, Mitch and Andrew Joseph Kemplin, and the show's official Emperor Kick Track. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. Theme song is by Finite Music Forge. All audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17 USC Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for The Internet Says It's True wherever you get your podcasts, and you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent. The Internet Says It's True is part of the WCBE podcast experience.